Hi there, and welcome back to the channel. So, I was going to do a playback of my song White Crosses. This song was on the record Die Some by Dynamite Death Chair, but this song actually has a history. So I wanted to tell a little story if you have a minute to listen. This song was actually written, most of it was written, it was finished in 2018, but most of it was written in, say, 93, 94-ish, in the bathroom of a house in Atlanta, Georgia, on a street called State Street, next to Georgia Tech. That area is called Home Park. And we lived right down the street from Remy Zero, a really good band that was signed to Geffen. And they ended up moving to California. They moved to LA to a hotel in Hollywood that a lot of bands lived in. But we played a couple shows with them, and it was right around that time period that I wrote this song. And I had written several songs in that house, and Mark really liked this one. He thought this one was a step up, and it was, everybody in the band liked it. In other words, sometimes you write a song and the band doesn't love it, and so you have to sort of, fight for it a little bit. But this one everybody liked. But for whatever reason, it never was finished and never was recorded and was sort of forgotten. We forgot the song. It was dropped from our repertoire. We did play it live one time. We played it live a bunch of times, but it was actually recorded because we did an appearance on the WRAS morning show. And that was when WRAS was Album 88, and it was a college rock, left of the dial station. Amazing station. God, what a great station. I remember they had a show one weekend that played, pretty much, it had a show about the House Martins, and they played pretty much every song the House Martins ever recorded. And there was a lot of gospel stuff that I had never heard before that I got to record that day. And back in those days, you would record a radio show like that, like on a jam box, and then you'd have the tape, and you just ride around the car and listen to it, forever. And so that was the kind of thing we did back in the 80s with Album 88. So we played the song live, and it was recorded and everything, but I just didn't get finished. I think we felt like it was missing a part. And so I kind of finished that part. But I realized later that this was different from the original version because I've heard Mark play it since then, and I remembered what it was that he did that I tried to replicate in a different way. So the original version was a little different. But this song reminds me of our interaction with the band Big Star, which was an amazing circumstance. And so that's the story I wanted to tell. The story begins for me when I was in college. I was 18 years old, and I was walking around in college, and I think I went to the library and saw, on Rolling Stone, they had a list of cool albums for the year. I think it was 1987. And I looked on there and I saw the Replacements, Pleased to Meet Me, and I'd never heard of the Replacements before, but I was like, I'll go check this band out. I've never heard of them. Everybody's saying this record is the best record of the year or whatever. So I checked out the record, and I loved it. I actually loved the band, I loved the album, and I went and got all the Replacements albums and became a really heavy-duty Replacements fan. It's in 1987. I was pretty late to the game because they'd been around since 82 or so. And I thought they were terrific, and I loved everything about their aesthetic, the Midwestern kind of plainness. And I had never been exposed to a band that actively tried to play poorly. Their whole attitude was was the opposite of what I had been accustomed to seeing out of bands that wanted to always put their best foot forward. And they sort of reveled in being drunk, and you never knew if they were going to play a good show or not, live. So anyway, I was a really big Replacements fan now because of that record. And I remembered that one of my favorite songs on the album was this song called Alex Chilton. It was just called Alex Chilton. And I couldn't really, back in those days, you didn't have access to lyrics all the time or whatever. So I couldn't really make out exactly what he was talking about or who this Alex Chilton character was. But I quickly found out that he was an artist, and he had been in a band called Big Star that had been incredibly influential, really influential, but had not really gotten their due as far as being, a band that was famous or that had sold tons of records. So they were just sort of an undiscovered, college rock critic band. That's what I think of them as. They were a critic's choice, but not a popular choice. They never sold records. They weren't well known. But they were incredibly influential, and Alex Chilton had actually been in the band the Box Tops, which had been quite successful, had The Letter, which is a classic song. Alex Chilton sang that song when he was like 15, 16, 17 years old, somewhere in that range. So he was an absolute genius, a great songwriter, singer, incredible talent. But I had never heard of him before, and he seemed like a very difficult artist to get into at the time. But I was highly intrigued because of the Replacements, writing that song about him. Paul Westerberg wrote that song about him. And so it was kind of the first time that I had heard his name, and I remembered picking up Feudalist Tarts and being confused by, is that what it's called, Feudalist Tarts? There was a couple of his records that I was, Flies on Sherbet, completely confused by. I would get the record, and now I understand him, very well, but at the time I didn't quite understand what it was that he was doing. And I remember we took a trip to Santa Fe, the whole band did, and we were writing songs in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And it was, a really amazing trip. And we went to this little CD shop, and our drummer, John, who always knew about music that I had never heard of, he was really good at finding things, and it was usually something that I wouldn't have found on my own. He would find it and tell us about it. So he bought a couple of, I remember they were green CDs by Rykodisc, and they were really nice. They had like really nice packaging and this really thick, like booklet that went with it with lots of information. They're like a legacy band, a classic band like this. There was a lot of story. And there's a lot of a story to Big Star. If you know about the band, it's a tragic, sad story. But it kind of reminds me of the Badfinger story a little bit. But I remember being highly intrigued when I saw those CDs because they were such, you could tell that the label had put a lot of care into it, and you could tell that this band was, something substantial. And the first album really got me going. I remember hearing the Ballad of El Goodo, the song 13, Down on the Street, Back of a Car. All these songs were really, impressive material, great singing. I just remember thinking it was just pretty amazing, and I couldn't believe that no one, really, it wasn't well known at the time. So this song was kind of, I think, a reaction to hearing Big Star. I wanted to make a sound like that. They reminded me of Cheap Trick, but more of a critic's choice, whereas Cheap Trick is more of a fan's choice, like they have more music that's more accessible than Big Star, but they're very similar bands with similar obsessions to me. But it was an amazing thing that we ended up having interaction with them, and I'll tell you how that went down also. We ended up being managed by Jesse James Dupree, who was the singer for Jackal. And he had a partner named Warren, and they were our managers. It's a long story. I'll tell that story some other time. But we were discovered by Jesse's brother, Danny. He saw us playing a gig and thought we were interesting. Thought we were kind of terrible, but he also thought we were interesting. So he told Jesse about us, and Jesse didn't give us the time of day for about a year. I remember meeting him early on, and he really didn't give us the time of day. But at some point, he took interest. Probably because there was label interest that was starting to happen. So that, got him interested. And so we ended up signing a contract with them. And so once we signed a major contract with them, everything escalated rapidly. And we got a major attorney, and we had like an infrastructure. We were on this big company, and everybody on that label, or on our management company, like Jackal, was a platinum artist. They had a couple of other bands that they had dealt with that all had sold records, had been successful. So we were like the new upstart band. And they would send us out to these showcases for labels, to try to get a record deal. And they were trying to get us a very massive record deal, like $1 million record deal. So we were going around to all of these showcases. We went to one in Nashville, and right after the one in Nashville, there was one in Memphis. And Memphis is the Big Star town. And Memphis is an amazing musical town. I really like the city of Memphis. We had some really amazing experiences there. But so we're in the van on our way there, and there was some promise that we might meet Jody Stevens from Big Star at this thing, because we had heard that Warren knew him and that he was going to introduce us to him. So we were like really excited, and we were listening to Big Star the whole way down there and like freaking out, like we were about to go, meet somebody amazing. And earlier, like right before this happened, oh God, I forgot about this part of the story. Mark and John worked in a sandwich shop. It was called Gorin's, and it was downtown in Buckhead. And John was at work one day with his Big Star t-shirt. He had a Big Star t-shirt, which is really cool. And he was at work, and this guy comes in and says, "Hey, what do you know about Big Star? I know this band. I'm from Memphis. I'm a writer. I'm a rock critic, producer, and I know Big Star." And so John was like, "What?" And so this guy comes to our house, and we hung out with him for the afternoon, and he knew all of these people, and he was legit. He had like album credits as a producer. He was a writer. I don't want to say his name because we ended up not having the best. We ended up parting, having a falling out. But at this point, we were all like chummy and friends and everything, and he came over and basically introduced us to all this other music, this Memphis-centric music, that Big Star and the Chris Bell solo record, and he knew everything about Big Star. He had, he knew the people in the band, and he knew the recording studio. He knew people at Ardent. So he was like basically blowing our minds, and he came to the house and heard one of our demos, some of the material, and he started freaking out. He was like, "Hey, this is exactly the kind of music I like. I'm going to help you guys." And we're like, "Cool," and sort of forgot about it. And then like a couple weeks later, we get a call from him, and he says, "Hey, you guys are coming to Memphis. You're going to see Big Star. They're going to do a show, a reunion show, and you're going to be there. You're going. I got you backstage and everything." And we were like, "What?" So we got in our van, and we took our friend Alan, and we all drove up to Memphis, and it was surreal. I remember I fell asleep in the back of the van. I woke up, and it was like completely surreal. We're at this theater. We walk in, and I remember like literally I had been asleep in the van. I get out of the van. I'm in Memphis. I walk into this club. It was like a theater. I forgot the name of it. It was a weird club. I don't think we ever went back there again. It was like a pretty big place, massive place, but I don't remember the name of it. And I remember I walked in the door, and there was Alex Chilton just sitting on the floor right in front of me. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe my eyes. There was Alex Chilton sitting right there, and he was watching this band. I think they were called the Viceroys. They were like doing a retro kind of like 50s sort of thing, and he was grinning. He was watching that band and enjoying the band, and like nodding along. And I just sat behind him for like their whole set and just kind of stared at Alex Chilton. I wasn't used to seeing like famous legends yet, And there was Alex Chilton sitting right in front of me. I couldn't believe it. And we didn't say anything to him or anything. And he was like, he was laying on the floor. I remember it was like a big club that had like a area where everybody would congregate, but it also had like a slanted floor. I don't remember. My memory's probably weird. But I remember he was laying on the floor at this place. And I didn't meet any other band members or anything, but there was Alex Chilton. And then they got up on stage and played, and it was Alex Chilton and Jody Stevens, the drummer, the original drummer. Chris Bell obviously has died. He died in the 70s. So they were, the replacement people were John Auer and Ken Stringfellow from the band, the Posies. And we really liked their record, Frosting on the Beaters. So it was a perfect thing to get to see them as well. And they played an amazing show. And John Auer and Ken Stringfellow are awesome singers and like really, really good musicians. I was like blown away by them. They were excellent. They weren't very friendly, but they were very excellent. We hung out with them a little bit backstage, but they wanted us to get gone quick, so we made ourselves scarce. And I didn't meet Jody Stevens that night. And the only person that I actually like made an attempt to talk to was Alex Chilton, but I couldn't get any words out. I just kind of stood there while we were talking there. While we were standing in front of him, I just sort of blanked out a little bit. But John ended up somehow getting his guitar strap. So to this day, John Skinner has Alex Chilton's brown leather guitar strap. I don't know how he got it. I thought that Alex Chilton gave it to him, but he told me he just sort of grabbed it from him. I don't know. We were crazy back then, totally crazy, and we were very obsessed with music, and so this was really major to us. So then we just left. We went back home and forgot about it. It was just like we were just nerds that went to go see a show, like fanatical music nerds that got to see a legendary band, and I thought that was the end of it. But what ended up happening is we played this showcase in Memphis, and on the way there, we know that we are going to get to see Jody Stevens. We've been told, hey, you're going to get to meet Jody Stevens. He's going to be there. So that was really cool, and we had already seen Big Star and been completely blown away and really excited about it. So when we get there, I can't remember where we were. It was some kind of convention center or something where all these labels were there. I remember Metallica's managers were there. All these people were there. And I saw Jody Stevens walk up. And he was talking to us. And he was actually he told us he was going to come see our band. He liked our tape. And I almost fainted. I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe. I couldn't believe that he was talking to me and that he was interested in my music. It was unbelievable. And so I looked at him and tried to let him know that I was a massive fan. I was like, well, Big Star, means a lot to me. And John, I motioned to John, and he was utterly confused. He did not know what we were talking about. And this is pre the whole, and now Big Star has kind of become a thing again, and there was a documentary about him a few years, like 10 years ago, I think. I didn't watch it. It was too emotional for me to even go near it. But it was a big thing, I mean, they weren't a big thing yet. And so he didn't know that anybody cared. He was confused that we were interested in him. He was trying to play A&R because he was working as A&R for Ardent. And so he was letting us know that he had heard our tape and that Ardent was interested in us, which was mind-boggling. I had no idea. And I couldn't believe that the drummer of Big Star was telling me that my music was good and that he wanted to, potentially sign us. And that he was inviting us to go to the Ardent Studios the next day. It's incredible. And the most incredible part of it was that he didn't understand that we were blown away by him, because the Big Star kind of reunion thing hadn't really kicked off yet, and he didn't know that people were so crazed about the band. I just don't think he understood. And so it was amazing. So that night we played a show, and he was there. I remember staring at him basically the whole set, because there weren't that many people in the audience. It was a showcase, and sometimes showcases are poorly attended, and it's hard to get yourself up for them, but you have to, because that's your big moment. So it was at a place called 616 Club, that was also known as 61 Sucks. And we played that night. I remember they had like a screen that lifted up. And so we were behind the screen, and it slowly lifted, and we played 8 songs. And after it was done, we went to the parking lot, and I remember that the A&R people from the label were there. It was 2 women, very smart girls, incredibly smart. And I was very rude to one of them. I feel bad about it. Did not behave nicely to her. And she was very accomplished and smart and very good. She ended up working for Steve Earle. But, and I was rude to her, and I'm sorry for that. But we stood in the parking lot, and Jody Stevens offered us a record deal with Ardent Records, and it was mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. And we went to... we got to go to the studio, and they showed me where Paul Westerberg threw up on the ceiling. I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. Yeah, he showed me where Paul Westerberg threw up on the ceiling. And apparently what he had done is he'd thrown up into his hands and chunked it up there. And they still had the stain, which I thought was amazing. And then they played us a lot of the ZZ Top Antenna record, which had just been recorded there, which I thought was really cool. got to hear those tracks. And I think that's where they redid the drums, which I wish they hadn't done that, because those redone drums were terrible sounding. But I think they did them at Ardent. They went in and redid the drums on all those classic ZZ Top records. But I remember we got to hear Antenna, which was a new record at the time. Absolutely amazing. Stunning experience. And then after that, they offered us a record deal, and our management turned it down. And it made sense at the time because they really weren't a healthy label. And in fact, they shuttered within a year. So it wouldn't have worked out, which is sad. But it was still an amazing experience, and I still value it. You know, I sometimes think back on it. It's like, is there something different that we could have done? But I don't think so. It was an amazing offer and an incredible moment, and I would love to relive some of that stuff. But the offer probably wouldn't have done anything, because the label was about to fold. They were offering us, we could record a record at Ardent, which would have been incredible. But I just don't think it would have worked out, because the label shuttered, and that was the end of it. So, but it was an amazing experience to have done that, and I feel very lucky to have been able to meet Jody, to have gotten to see them. We got to see them again in an even smaller setting at Smith's Old Bar. Right before the last time I saw them was at Smith's Old Bar, and they played another show, and that one was amazing too, and it was in such a small club. It was a shorter night, but man, oh man, it was really something else to watch Alex Chilton and Jody do their thing. And like I said, the Posies were awesome, really, really talented. So that is where this song came from. Wow, that was heavy. All right, so let me just play this back for you, and you can decide if I don't think it sounds like Big Star at all, but I was trying to sound like Big Star when I wrote the song. Okay, so now let's play it back. We'll start with the drums. Okay, so everything here. Wait, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? I don't need any recording. Okay, and this here. Okay, so I'll start. I'm in mastering mode. I'm going to hit play. Make sure I'm in master. Yeah. That's the snare. Left overhead. Right overhead. And then the bass drum. Okay, so that's the drums. Let's take it back again, and I'll start in on the guitars. And if this starts with a snare, it's like da 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 da. Les Paul again. There's an acoustic guitar in here too, because this song, it needed an acoustic to give it that. It's sort of like a Birds, Big Star kind of thing. Let's hear the bass for a second. sound like a knife. That was the goal. So I wanted knife tone.
Things that I said to you, and even though you don't get tired, even though you don't get tired, no.
Okay, so there's the vocal isolated. You can hear there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there vocally. Okay, so vocally, I did one track that I doubled just to give it enough output. It wasn't a double like I sang it. It was a double in just it's the same track twice, just to get more output from the Zoom. Then I did a, and even though you don't get tired, oh, and I did harmonies of those, oh, no, and then there's a down, couple of high harmonies, you'll hear, hold on.
It will break you down.
Guitar that sounds like that than a Gibson, like a mahogany Gibson. That's a certain sound of that. Can't get that anywhere else. Okay, now let's hear it. I'll try to make it sound better as we go.
Say that things that I said to you, even though you don't get tired, even though you don't get tired, it will break you down.
think I ended every single song on that record with feedback. But postscript on Big Star, the sad part of it is that Alex Chilton ended up dying of some kind of heart ailment in his 50s. Not much older than me. I think he was like 58. I'm 50. I'll be 53 in a month or something. And I just find that to be such a major drag. I think it was because he didn't have health insurance, you know? Something like stupid like that. It's so sad. What a waste. What a genius. Next time.